So when you said that the guidance you received was to replace it with another thought, it kind of got me thinking about the contrast between deliberate thought and receiving impression from spirit, because I would have never thought of it that way. I would have thought of it as spirit sending me a message that I needed to actually focus more on in order to understand a lesson. But I loved the guidance that you received as well, that, be deliberate about your thoughts and choose another thought instead. So I just wondered if you could say something more about the balance in our teaching between receiving impressions from spirit versus placing impressions into spirit. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, I think, for me, like in that instance that I was talking about with the spider, I think part of it is to use our intuition and, figure out, like, is this a message from spirit? I loved when Carolyn took it to there. In my experience back then, to me, it was just because I saw that one and it stirred up a fear in me. It would have been, I wish I would have thought about it back then to look it up and receive some meaning, because I think that's part two of how we can help dissipate the ruminating, the ruminations, is to, fully be present, be mindful, ask what this is, bringing to us. And then for me, like, it just became like a deep fear that I was going to, create this experience. But it does bring up, your question brings up a really good point, and it was something that had potential to make it into the talk today, but I didn't know if it would or wouldn't. And it's the idea of mindfulness and experience, so when these challenging things come up in our lives that, with the air quotes again, like these things that we call bad or wrong or awful, the power of, like, it's happening. So, Eckhart Tolle, talks about, like, how do we know it's supposed to be happening to us? Because it's happening. There's, we can't change it. And so often we get hung up in, like, wishing it wouldn't happen. Did it happen because I did this? Maybe if I had done this differently, it wouldn't have happened. And all our energy is going into this resistance of what already is. And so by simply saying, accepting that this has happened, and then, like, how do I learn and grow from it? And mindfully allowing it to speak to us, to, just be with it. Like, okay, so this has happened. What's it feel like? What's it feel like in my body? If it had a color, what color would it be? What is something that I can grow from? And allowing ourselves to fully experience it. It's the same kind of thing like with grief. If we try to deny it and block it out, it stays, and it will always be there until we're able to process it and work through it. And then it becomes an integrated part of us. It's not a pain. Well, it might be a pain, but it's not a suffering. It's an integration, and that just by mindfully allowing to experience it and observe it without the judgments of what it is, we instantly, cut, like, half of the suffering that we're experiencing from it. The pain and those tough moments in life are always going to happen. It's part of this full infinite potential that we are here in this physical world to experience. And it's a guarantee. Like the Buddhist saying is that pain is guaranteed, but suffering is optional. And so this is just, we are here in this physical world, even though it's all spirit, and it's almost as if, it's like a dream world that we are living in. It is very real for us. And so we're here to experience those things. So just allowing it to be fully embraced, not loved necessarily, even though it is part of our ultimate growth. So it's worthy of love, but just allowing ourselves to experience that instead of pushing it down and trying to deny it, because the universe will always remember. And if we don't allow it to be experienced and integrated, it's just going to pop up again in another way until we make that our thing, until we incorporate it and then move on. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your question correctly or not.
Well, that was great. Thank you.
Sure.
That was very, very, very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate the question.